everyone, thanks for joining me here today. I'm Carrie and this is Clean Eating Kitchen, where I share real food recipes that make you feel great. And at the time of recording this video, we are in a shelter-at-home situation here in California. I believe it is about day 5 and my fresh and produce ingredients are starting to run a little bit low. So if you're in a similar situation, then I hope that this recipe comes at a good time for you. It is a really easy recipe. You can serve it for a lunch or dinner, and you can also freeze it to eat at a later date. So let's get started. So the first step of this recipe is to grab 2 bell peppers and an onion. And then we're going to give our bell peppers a rinse and pat them dry with a clean towel. Next, we're going to slice the peppers into bite-sized pieces. I like to cut them into thin strips and then cut those strips in half. And if you don't have peppers, you can always use a can of chopped tomatoes, because in these crazy times, we've just got to be creative. Next, we're going to slice the onion, and I like to cut off the ends, and then I cut a little piece to make the onion stable, and then I set the onion on its side and then cut the slices that way. I hope that makes sense. I learned this tip on the Food Network, I think, many years ago. And so just add the onions to a bowl and set them aside. And then next we're going to get our chicken ready, and I'm using about 1 1/4 pounds of chicken thighs. You could use chicken cutlets if you prefer, and then just cut them into about 1-inch pieces and add them to a bowl. And then of course always be sure to wash your hands and the cutting board and the knife after handling the raw chicken. And then we're going to measure out our 1 cup of white basmati rice. You can also use jasmine rice or any kind of a long grain white rice. And just give it a rinse by putting it into a colander, and then just set the rice aside until we're ready to add it to the Instant Pot. Next, we are going to hit the saute button, and we're going to give our vegetables a little saute, and this will just add more flavor at the end. So we'll add a little bit of oil and let it heat up, and then next we're going to add the veggies. So we'll add the sliced onions, and then we're going to add the peppers, and we're just going to give it all a stir. And this just takes just about 5 minutes total. The extra step, again, is just nice for adding some extra flavor. And we're also going to add the chicken and let the chicken start to cook just a little bit, just for a few minutes, just to give it a little bit more flavor, and also make sure that the chicken gets cooked completely through in the Instant Pot. But right now we're just going to saute the veggies and the chicken for a few minutes. Then you can cancel the saute button and add the rinsed rice and give it a stir again. And this recipe is just so great because it's just a true one-pot meal. The last step is to add our 1 cup of chicken or veggie broth, and I always like to use reduced sodium chicken broth just to make sure it's not too salty. And then we'll lock on the lid, and we're going to set the time to 7 minutes. And this will make sure the rice gets cooked perfectly, the chicken will get cooked perfectly, and this is just a great amount of time. So while the chicken and rice is cooking, we're going to make our peanut sauce. And again, you could always use almond butter or sunflower seed butter. So I like to measure out my peanut butter and then add it to a bowl. And next we're going to add some rice wine vinegar, and you could just use balsamic vinegar or whatever you have on hand. And then some coconut aminos, about 1/4 cup. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of toasted sesame oil. And you can find the link to this full printable recipe on my website in the description of this video. And we'll whisk together the sauce. You have to kind of start carefully so you don't make a mess, and then eventually it makes a really creamy, delicious sauce. And just set it aside. Eventually we're going to stir it into our chicken and rice as soon as it's done. So after the Instant Pot is done cooking, you can let the pressure come down naturally for about 5 minutes, and then carefully remove the lid And then we're just gonna give it a stir, and we're going to add our peanut sauce. And I think you're just really gonna love this recipe because it is a one-pot meal. Kids love it because of the peanut sauce. You have a nice amount of veggies in there, so it's healthy. So you just stir in the peanut sauce, and then I like to portion this meal out to either store it in the refrigerator, or I usually store half of it in the freezer to eat later. But this makes about between 6 and 8 servings, and I'm only a household of 2, and so I like to divide it into 4 servings, and then we just eat it throughout the week, and then in the future, because I usually end up freezing some of it. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I will see you in the next video.